Hello guys, my name is Luis and I'm from Oyer Wine. And before we go into today's video, I wanted to answer a question that you probably have now that this video got into your YouTube feed, and that could be, who the hell are you? And to be honest, that's a valid question. I will be asking myself the same thing. So my name is Luis. I'm from the smallest country in Central America called El Salvador, which I'm pretty sure you've heard of, and I hope that you have heard nothing but wonderful things, and I'm a wine lover. I recently got my WSCT level 1 and level 2, and I'm someone who is always fascinated by wine production. I love recommended wine, and I'm starting to make some content, so I'm gonna leave below my TikTok and my Instagram. So if you want to go take a look at it, show some love, some support, I will really appreciate it, and I will also appreciate that you can hit the subscription button. That will definitely inspired me to make some more content. So let's dive in today's topic, and that's Rioja. I'm pretty sure you have heard that word before and you have even seen it in the bottles before when you go and get some wine, but maybe you don't understand what that is. So I really hope that this video helps you understand a little bit more about that. So let's begin by defining Rioja. So Rioja is a wine region located at the north part of Spain. And if we compare the north, the middle part, and south, the north part can be really severe, especially for rainfall that is pretty much present, especially in winter, but I will say overall the entire year except for summer. Temperatures are really low in comparison to the rest of the country. But what makes this region ideal for winemaking is pretty much the mountains surrounding the area that protects it from the rainfalls. And also there's the river Ebro in the middle of the valleys that give some warmth to the grapes when they need it, especially when temperatures go down. Now, something else that's very important and I will say worth discussing is the control board that protects the quality of the wines in this region. So the control board was actually born back in 1787. Can you imagine for how long this has been working in this region? It's been, well, years and years. So a group of farmers decided to have a way that they could label their wines and the method that they were using for marketing purposes, basically. But it was until 1924 that the control board was actually born and is the actual board that we know nowadays. And along with its birth, we also got the DO, and later on we will have the DOC. These are the appellations that they use for the quality of the wines. And basically, if you wonder why or what they exactly do, well, first of all, they control the varieties that they are going to use for winemaking. Some of the varieties are going to be Tempranillo, of course, that's the king grape in that region, Grenache, Viura, Maturana, Graciano, just to mention a few of the ones that they allow, but they also control the methods and techniques that winemakers need to use for wine production. They also, and this is something that you must do no matter what, if you are a winemaker, you cannot have your production or your winery outside Rioja, meaning like if you want to open something in Barcelona, Madrid, or Valencia, you cannot produce your wine there and then move it to Rioja. That will simply not be possible, not allowed. You must do since harvesting the grapes, well, the growing of the grapes, the production, the aging, the bottling, everything has to be done in Rioja. That's the reason why this board exists. They also give you the rules how to label your wine. I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. And a little bit of history about this and how they actually got this, I will say, neat regulation with wine is that back in the 1800s, France were facing a difficult situation with their vineyards because they were facing a severe disease that was affecting the production of wine. So some French winemakers decided to move across Europe so they could take their knowledge into different areas to produce wine, specifically mostly from Bordeaux, where they were used to make Cabernet Sauvignon and Merlot. But when they got to different regions like Rioja, they had to use the, well, native varieties from this region to produce wine. Throughout time, they will select international varieties. Nowadays, Rioja, you can find production of Sauvignon Blanc, which is from France, but that actually occurred like a couple of years ago, not back then. So back then, they really have to work with the grapes that they were allowed to use. And not because Spanish people don't like Cabernet Sauvignon or Merlot, it's just like those type of grapes will simply not give the best wines that we know nowadays. If they decide to make them in Rioja, it will simply not work. Maybe it might work in the future due to climate changes. We never know how a region is going to end up, but back then it was just not possible. So when they were making these techniques and they were developing the process of making wine, they decided eventually to protect this through the control board, which is the regulations and the steps, processes that we nowadays know this region for. So aging is another thing that is regulated by the control board. And I'm going to show you and I'm going to read from my own TikTok account. So I'm going to be doing some sort of promotion to my channel so you can have an idea of the content that I create. And I am going to read or explain to you how the aging happens over here and also how you can identify it, because you as a consumer, you can definitely understand how long your wine have been in bottles or in the bottle before you actually buy it. So I'm going to leave over here the stamps that they use for you to understand the system. And we'll start with the green one. This is the generic one. There's nothing special on this one. These are going to be the most inexpensive wines in the region because there's no aging requirement, not for red, white, or rosé wines. And if you buy this, you really need to understand that these are the young wines and therefore you can consume them in about 1 or 2 years the most. Where things start getting interesting, it's when you get Crianza. You're going to see the red label on it or the red stamp. And these wines are subjected to a minimum of 2 years in aging process. And out of those 2 years, one has to be in oak barrels. This is for red wines. For rosé and white wines, they have to be in oak barrels for at least 6 months. Everything gets even better when we are talking about Reserva. You're gonna see the maroon or burgundy color or stamp on the bottle. Now, this one requires 3 years of aging process, but at least 1 year has to be in barrels, and then you're gonna add 6 months of aging in the bottle. This is only for red wines. For white and roses, the process of aging is 2 years and at least 6 months in barrels. And then the most expensive, and I would say the wines that actually bring more quality to your table, it's going to be Gran Reserva. This is the one that you will find the blue stamp on it. So the aging process has to be at least 5 years. And two of them are going to be in barrels, and two of them have to be minimum aging in bottle. So you decide out of those 5 years, you need to make sure that at least two happen in oak barrels and two happen in the bottle. So you decide which one you are going to use the most. For white and rosé wines, it's 4 years. So it's actually a long aging process for this type of wines. And out of those 4 years, 6 months need to be in the bottle for aging. And I'm not lying to you, that's my page where I was reading a content that I created, but I'm going to be leaving the link in the description of this video. So if you want to take a look at yourself, you'll be able to find the information there. So I was also getting ready to do some live tasting over here, and I moved to Guatemala, and I actually got a surprise that well, funny story over here. I asked the host if they had some wine so I can do some wine tasting. I didn't want to bring my glass over here because it was gonna get broken. I actually found this type of glass. So of course I'm not gonna do it over here. I'm gonna be going to the supermarket. I'm gonna be grabbing some better glasses to do the tasting, and I'll get back to you so we can have the tasting of these wines live and well done as dessert. Okay, guys, as promised, here are the new glasses that I have to buy because I was refusing to use the other ones for this tasting. So I got two wines, one Crianza, one Reserva, both from the same winery, and it's Familia Valdelana. So, which is interesting about this winery is that they started making wine since 1583. So, these family ancestors have definitely been witnessing the beginning of Rioja. In other words, and all of the other family members have inherited this tradition of winemaking, and they have adapted to the new appellations, regulations, everything by the control board in Rioja. So let's begin with Crianza. So, what I love about this bottle in particular is that it tells you at the back that it's been in oak barrels for 12 months. Well, actually, 50% has been in American barrels and the other 50% has been in oak barrels. So let's take a look at the color. It's, well, ruby, but it's not really that deep. Something that I love when I have a glass of wine is like I like to see if I can see the bottom of the glass or if I can actually see my fingers through the liquid and I can actually distinguish my fingers very well. So it's not really that deep, but let's take a look or let's see what aromas we can perceive. Okay, so I know that elegance is something that you cannot smell, but it's just like when you put your nose in a glass, it's like all of the aromas come at the same time. So it's very harmonious, in my opinion, but it's very fruit driven, quite sweet in the nose. I feel some cherry, some strawberry, like tart fruit, really nothing like blackcurrant, raspberry, nothing like that, but it's like very delicate in the nose. And let's taste it. Well, let me tell you, the wine actually it's a little bit astringent. I was gonna say strong. So I don't perceive anything that actually comes from the barrel like clove, vanilla, leather. Those type of aromas or flavors are not here. The wine actually hits right away. You feel your palate very dry, and that's basically thanks to the tannin. So, can you actually imagine a wine that has been in barrels for over a year and is still astringent? How it's a wine from the same winery that hasn't been in barrels at all? That must be really astringent. At least that's what I'm thinking of. That's the perception that I'm gonna have after tasting these two. The sherry aromas are very present in this one. I really like it. If I was going to give a grade on this one or points, I will give it 90 points. It's actually good. Now let's move on with the second one. Now this Reserva has been aging in barrels for over 24 months. Can you imagine that? And it's the same thing. 50% has been in American oak barrel, 50% has been in French oak barrels. So let's let's taste it. Wow. So just when I was pouring this wine, I can tell you that the color is totally different. It's close to like a brown tone, but it still have some red tones in the color. I can see, well, you know what? Like the density in the liquid is actually more on this one than it was on that one. I can still see the bottom of the glass, but it's amazing in my opinion the color that this one has. Let's take a look in the nose. Well, I feel some, um, I do perceive wood aromas, leather, I do feel clove aromas on this one. I can perceive a little bit of fruit, just like the other one, some strawberry, some cherry, but what it's more strong to the nose, at least for me, is just the secondary flavors for the from the barrels. Let's taste it. It's promising, I have to say. Mm, wow, this wine is just another story. Tannins are actually low. I don't feel that astringency in my palate like the other one. But let me taste this again. Wow, it's like very fruit driven in the palate more than the other one. It's like everything is lined up at the same level that when you taste the wine, you actually feel some magic happening inside. You don't feel the dryness in the palate. It's there. I can feel it, but it's very minimal. It's very well balanced. I have to say that this has been, wow, a very good surprise. I will grade this 95 points. I cannot describe how good this wine is. And gonna have to say something is that these wines are really not expensive at all. I guess this one is less than $25, and this one it's like in the 20s or less than 20s, like in the range of 15 and 25. But what I love about this is the quality, and this is the point of the video, that thanks to these wonderful regulations, I can definitely go to the store and I can get wines that are not going to put me out of my budget, and I will get quality, which is every wine lover or every wine consumer is looking for. These wines, I have to say, are worth the money that I paid for. And something, and I'm gonna just put this over here, just for this video to look as aesthetic as possible. That's like a hard word for me to say. So what I was gonna say is that Rioja is going to be going through hard times in the next couple of years, especially with vintage of 2025. I was in the wineries last year. I visited like 3 or 4 different wineries. And just when I was there, weather conditions were not as expected. I was there in summer and they were dealing with very heavy rainfall with even hail that ended up damaging the grapes in the zone. So if you see vintage 2025 in Rioja wines, please show some love. Get those bottles because pretty much that has been a miracle by winemakers that they have to get the grape safe from the weather conditions that have been severe to be able actually to produce some wine for the next couple of years. I'm really hoping that 2026 can be an exceptional vintage and so much better than last year. But guys, if you have the opportunity to buy Rioja, I beg you to do it. The quality is amazing. And especially, I am surprised with this one right here. So thanks so much for watching. I hope that you really loved this video. And as I said before, please subscribe for more. It really helps me to make some more content.